Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk all things round 22 with my Supercoach team. Before we get into that, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms and everywhere where you get your podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, SoundCloud, and contact us via Twitter, Swiz26 or Supercoach Insider 100. Thank you for the ongoing support of the community, as well as our major sponsor, Splash Vodka. Now, a quick shout out to our co-host, Benny Boy. He's had a little bit of surgery this week, and he is recovering well. So good to hear that you're back on your feet, mate. And hopefully we will have us three together all podcasting soon. But we were lucky last week. We did have Chris down from Queensland, and the other podcast that I'm involved in with Fancast AFL. Chris was able to join us last Friday, so that video has gone out. That was a barrel of laughs having Chrissy on the show. So if you haven't seen that, check out that and support that show. It was good to have a wide range of content creators throughout the week. I think we had two shows this week. We all had Damo and Liam from Supercoach Edge come and join us. So it was great meeting those boys. And talking about meeting people, the Dr. Supercoach boys had their get-together on the Saturday down at South Melbourne. So myself, Chris, Emily, or better known as Supercoach Mama, so we all ventured down and met a lot of great people of the Supercoach community. I would say there would have been about 50 people, if not more, there. It was awesome for those who came up and introduced themselves. Some great fans of this show. We do have a lot of double up between us and the Dr. Supercoach boys. So it was great to meet, people who regularly message and watch our programming. So thank you to those who did chat. We had a bit of a community going there with myself. There was Ben, Swanee, Steve, all the boys who also play cricket in their off season. So I'll be definitely, now that I sort of do these individual podcasts, doing a lot more around the BBL this season, which definitely was a topic of conversation on Saturday. It was a lot of fun cheering on Zach Merritt. I think, or would have been about 40 of the 50 there seemed to have Zach Merritt as their captain. So that was great fun cheering him on in the last quarter. Not good for the Bont owners as Merritt continued to close him down. And I think there was two Essendon supporters in that get-together. And I think the rest of the crowd were cheering on West Coast for the win. So, it was a lot of fun hanging out with them, having some drinks, and the Dr. Supercoach boys. Thank you for the event that they put on. Talking about events as well, they haven't given us the time yet, but Crown has put their event back to next Friday, the 18th. So hopefully we'll have some details about that soon. And fingers crossed we don't get pushed back again. So that'll be the Herald Sun boys, Heath Shaw, and a few other content creators will get down to the pub at Crown and have a few drinks and laughs, and we will able to talk some Supercoach. So once we have the more details about that, we will let you know, and hopefully you can join us, and some pretty good grub down there as well. So it should be pretty good. All right, onto my team, 2508, which was about 1,600 overall for the week last week, pushed me up to 672, so that bit of that yo-yo, but I feel like that may be my highest rank for the year. Things go in the right direction. As I said, missed out on the VC with English. Still a pretty good score, 112, but well done to those who have Bont or Libba and went there. I rolled the dice with Zachy Merritt against the Eagles, and he came home very strong in that last quarter. I think it was about a 55-point last quarter, something like that. It was pretty good, and that helped with the game being close. Nick Martin continues to frustrate me. He was on field, so I probably cost myself, I think it was 26 points. It was 26 points with Wines on the bench there. So that's probably the only disappointing thing for my team this week. But I won all 10 leagues. There was a one league which actually at the end of the game, which I think it was, might have been me in first or second versus third. So all I needed was a draw, and after scaling, we were drawn. And the scaling gave me an extra, took a point off them, so I ended up winning one of my finals by a point. And talking about finals, close finals, we had a few draft finals on the weekend, and one to my mate Riley over another mate of mine, 40, in our cricket club draft. That was pretty exciting. That I think that even was when the game ended. It ended up coming down to scaling. There was a bit of a nervous wait there, and I think that wasn't alone. Hearing a few people talking about either their draft or classic finals, where there was. Because I think going into after the siren, there may have been 50 or 60 points still available. So there was a few games sweating on what Brayshaw or Sarong was going to get scaled, and just an amazing week for some Supercoach matches. So, yeah, moving on. So, most people, you're either going to be the week off in your head-to-head in your prelim, or you're going to be playing in a knockout semi-final, or you're just knocked out and not playing in finals, and then you're just kind of hoping for a high score for a week or continue with your overall ranking. So the big news this week is obviously Nick Decos, and not just from a Supercoach point of view, but how does that shape for the Brownlow and then Collingwood season. So that'll be very interesting to kind of watch and see if like Bont or Petrarca can close the gap over the next 3 weeks to make the Brownlow really interesting, and then how Collingwood sort of manage with Nick not in the side. But for us super coaches, we need to find a solution. Now, I don't have a trade, so unfortunately Nick is absolutely useless to my team because the Pies play first for the next 3 weeks, so I can't even use him as a loophole. Would have been nice to have that one trade for this situation, especially since Nick Martin has done absolutely nothing since I brought him in. I could have held Tom Green. He comes out and scores a 120, would have looked beautiful in my midfield right now, and I could have been shipping off Decos to another option. So some of those options, it all depends on what sort of cash you have. Now, if you have no cash and you don't have Zachy Butters, he is probably the obvious one. Now, the hard thing with that is you need either Decos or a defender, a premium defender sitting in your midfield, and then you can obviously move them back and then Decos in the midfield and bring in a Butters because he is the natural obvious one. And then if you have cash, and I know a few people already messaged me about this, they are going straight up to Clayton Oliver. It's about 100k on top of Decos to get that happening. Oliver is back this week, so you'd think, well, people are sort of backing him in to, get back to that average straight away. And, they've what's it been, nearly, 10 weeks that he's been on the sideline. So it could be a slow start. The risk is there. What happens, if the Melbourne are winning easy, does he get subbed off at 3/4 time? But they are playing the Blues, and I don't think that's the sort of game that's going to happen. The Blues are playing some really good footy. So he is the other obvious option there in that midfield. If you're wanting a defender for who's a cheaper price than Decos and you don't have any cash, Nick Newman has been absolutely tearing it up over the last few weeks, ever since Sam Doherty moved back into that midfield with some of the Blues injuries. So these are these scores over his last 7 games. So he's got the 121, the 59, then 114, 106, 92, 137, and 144. You couldn't go, I don't think you can go wrong with Nick Newman. There's always been a little bit of thought about, does he dispose the ball well? Is his efficiency good? But, when you're getting that much ball and being that person who's coming out of half back for the Blues, it seems like Newman's definitely more trusted than even maybe Sard at some point. So I think you've got a safe bet there. Now, if you've got the cash and you're lucky enough to have just a lazy 100k floating around, well, it's I think 91 officially. James Sicily, since injury, had that 58, but has also scored 102, 171, and 166. Very hard to go past the sick dog. So if you are in the position where you can even, if you might have 2 trades, might be worth going down one just to get Sicily in, because this is the reason why I held him originally. It was 4 weeks. It wasn't an injury. It was 3 weeks, I think, at the time, but it wasn't an injury. It was just to do with suspension. He is one of the best, if not the best defender in Supercoach, and it's showing why he is having some absolute massive games. And it's not just massive games as in, as defending, he is influencing results. We saw that early in the year against St Kilda, and his game against the Pies on the weekend was absolutely brilliant. So, I'd be definitely recommending him as a defender option to bring in Decos. Also around that sort of mark that, as I said, it does depend on how much cash you've got. Doherty's slightly more expensive there, with the 11,000 on top, and then you got your sort of Luke Ryan. Houston struggled the last week with only the 61, but he's still a good option if you've got 60k to jump on top. There's not a huge amount below. Brayshaw sort of lost a bit of his value now with Oliver coming back, which is a bit disappointing. And then you can drop right down. You've got your Mitch Duncans and your Bailey Dells. Even maybe, and this guy could be a bit of a burn man next year. I'm just going to put it out right now. With Shannon Hearn retiring, could be a burn man, but for 3-week period to finish off your season, Alex Witherden, you could go worse than bring him in. So that is your best options that you're looking at for Decos, who seems to be the most obvious person to worry about. In regards to my side, as you can see there, I've got Tom Stewart as the emergency. Now, that was one of the big bonuses why I did score well last week. I loopholed Nick Decos, and so many people took his 41 on field, and we heard the knowledge, and we heard everything about through the week that McGuinness was going to tag him. Now, he did cop that injury, so he probably could have got himself up to a 60 or a 70, but I'm loopholing Stewart only because, well, Constable's playing on the Saturday. So there's not a lot much, like it's not like I'm expecting Chester to outscore Stewart, but you just never know what could happen in a game. Does somebody get, players get concussed, players get injured, and just in case Stewart found himself in that situation, I feel much better having him there, and it's more that break glass in case of emergency, and if Stewart went off injured, and we've seen this happen once before. I think it was the Bulldogs maybe a couple of years ago, and then he left the ground early in the game, so just going to take the safety call and put Stewart there. And the midfield, Nick Martin is the emergency there for me. So Martin hopefully can finally repay the favour. The biggest issue is, and it wasn't with Parrish actually coming back in the end, he's been really affected by them like sort of changing up their wing role. Nick Cox in particular has come back and he's playing a lot more of that percentage. And Nick Martin's playing a little bit more half forward, which doesn't make a lot of sense because Nick Martin was challenging. Now, he wasn't close enough, but challenging Goulden and Decos on form for one of those wing All-Australian spots, where to the point where you could have seen Nick Martin in that 40 squad, probably not getting that 22 unless he did something really spectacular from that sort of, how many weeks have I owned him? Like 3 weeks plus another 3 weeks. If he had like an unreal last 6 weeks, you just never know. But his last 3 weeks have been terrible since I brought him in. And it's just weird that, it's sort of mirrored Essendon's form. So you'd hope that they've sort of changed it up. And let's have a look at the teams here as well, because it's they've brought back Snelling, so that's naturally an extra forward. It looks like they've named Martin on the wing, and they're going to try to play Cox up forward. So let's see if that eventuates on the weekend, because he is a natural wingman. So yes, I've got him on the loophole, and if for whatever reason Martin does go well, I've got Bennett's there who's playing on the Sunday. Well, he's not playing, but playing on Sunday against the Doggies, so I can bring him in and then take somebody off. But then I just don't have that sort of loophole. It's not like I can move somebody forward, but it would probably be, again, the debate between, well, it's got to be probably a Wines then, unless something else. I do have Dunkley sitting in that midfield, so I guess I can move Dunkley forward if need be. However, he normally would move around because of Roberts, but it would have to be another okay, let's just say Martin scores well. I could always move Dunkley forward, and then, it could be like bench Taranto or somebody like that. Because the forward loophole is Marriage out this week. So he who is playing, and where is Mr. Marriage playing? On the Saturday evening. So they're playing in the derby. So he's my loophole for Darcy Cameron. And that's, again, kind of that with the Nick Martin situation. If there was, but actually it's nearly a bit useless because unless Darcy Cameron, it's more if Darcy Cameron has a shocker. So if Darcy Cameron has a shocker, then Nick Martin will spot with Roberts and Nick Martin will go on field. But if Darcy Cameron, and that's, as I said earlier, with the Stewart situation, but if Darcy Cameron goes well, there's not much I can do with those other loopholes because Roberts is back this week. So he has been named. So just be mindful of that. If you do have him and have kept him and been using him as a loophole, he is playing this week. So yes, that'll be interesting. It's a bit unfortunate because a lot of people, that's probably his best use at the moment, but you never know. Like Darcy Cameron, as I said with Stewart, if he goes off injured and gets a 10 or a 15 or something, I guess Roberts is some sort of cover if I was to, for whatever reason, needed him. So that's where I'm shaping up. And looking at a few teams, some teams do have those sort of 23rd person loopholes going. So just make sure your loophole is actually not playing, because you see this time of the year, you get some of the teams who are either out of contention or players coming back from injury. There is a bit of mix and matchings with the ins and outs. And then that is another big warning. Now, I don't think people would be considering to captain him or VCing him this week because it is the Blues, a bit of a tougher opponent. But Maxi Gawn is joined in the team with Brodie Grundy. So Grundy is meant to be playing forward, but at the same time, you'd expect him to get some time through that ruck. So just be mindful of that. There was some news about Briggs, and this is the other watch for me, that he could have been left out potentially with Flynn. Flynn is in the squad, but Flynn is named, I think, in the 8th spot on the on the extended bench. So I'm not expecting Flynn to play. However, if Flynn was to come in, I could potentially swap Darcy Cameron with Madden, and then Darcy Cameron would come on field if I want to do that. And then it would be a case of Martin comes on field into that forward line. So I'll just wait and see what teams, but I really hope Flynn doesn't play in Briggs sole ruck, because he is playing against a Port Adelaide team who is playing, I think it's Vizienti. I've probably butchered that, as I always do, but yeah, the young boy there from Port Adelaide, I expect Briggs to have a massive game against him. In regards to VCs and Cs at the moment, vice captain is very much on Zach Merritt versus North Melbourne, so I'll back him in. And the Bont, I always feel like I'm a week late with some of these guys, but yeah, the Bont up against the Hawks seems a fairly good shout. I think it's probably either going to be Bont, English, or Libba as your captain option. Seems to be the best one. Normally, teams playing West Coast is not a bad option, but I just don't see the ceiling there for Brayshaw. I don't think he's going to come out and pump like a 140, 150, so I'd be staying away from that. For the rest of the weekend, like the other games seem to be pretty close. I wouldn't necessarily be looking at one of the Swans players against the Suns. Suns have an absolute terrific record against the Swans at the SCG. Now, I'm not brave enough to go pick it again, but if you have a look at the last sort of 3-4 times they've played there, and I think they've got them 3 out of the last 4. So, yeah, just be mindful of that. And even those people who like to load up on their sort of multis and stuff like that, I'd be just potentially staying away from that game. I don't think that's a good betting game, and as always, gamble responsibly. So, yeah, so that's what's going on with my team. Continue to check us, all the boys, out. I don't think Ben's got anything up, but Chris should hopefully have his pod. Hopefully, even though he's dropped a few rankings over the last couple of weeks, we will try to get back together. We have talked about doing a couple of special pods as well. I think Supercoach has actually released NBL Supercoach, so yeah, I was hoping they might bring back the racing or even bring in AFLW, but we will definitely have to check that one out. And the other one that kicks off this weekend, and me being a big Man City supporter, is the FPL Fantasy Premier League. So that will, you need to get your team deadline in by, I think it's Saturday 3:30 Melbourne time. If you do the whole 38 week season, so that is probably as tough. Maybe, I think we're talking about this with Chris, that NBA is probably tougher because of the amount of games they play each week and how long the season goes, but it's probably the second toughest fantasy that you can do, the old Premier League fantasy. So, yeah, good luck for those people doing that. Good luck for your Supercoach. Good luck for your Supercoach finals. As we said last week, check out what your opponent's been doing, and even if you can hold off on that captain's call, that could be the difference on your winning and losing. Just have a look at those projections and see how you are tracking against your opponent in those do or die finals. Good luck, everyone, and we will talk soon.